And we're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Vesuvius public hearing, December the 7th, 2021 at 6 p.m. in council chambers. We need a motion, please, to approve the agenda, that the special open agenda be approved. Councillor Bennett, Councillor King, all in favor? Thank you. No, nobody has a question? Good. So what I'm going to do first off is read the statement of the chair. This public hearing is convened pursuant to section 464 of the Local Government Act, RSBC 2015, to allow the public to make representation to council respecting matters contained in zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.140/2021. Every person present who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. None of you will be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. However, it is important that you restrict your remarks to matters contained in the proposed bylaw. If you wish to speak once it is time for public representation and are attending in person, please proceed to the microphone and commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. If you wish to speak and are attending virtually, please virtually raise your hand. If you are unsure how to do so, you can find the information on the town's website, vesuvius.ca/content/public hearings. It will be your turn to speak once your name or phone number has been called. Your microphone will be unmuted and you may commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. Once you have finished speaking, your microphone will be muted. If they wish, members of council may ask you questions following your presentation. However, the function of council at this public hearing is to listen to you rather than to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. In accordance with the council procedure bylaw, presentations by members of the public shall be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes each. If a person has additional information that they are unable to provide within that time frame, they shall be given further opportunity to address council after all other interested members of the public have been heard a first time. Please refrain from applause or other expressions of emotion during this public hearing so that we may ensure as impartial a hearing as possible. After this public hearing is adjourned, council members will not speak to the public on this matter until after the matter has been dealt with at a public meeting. After this public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. So I will ask Mrs. Hilson to do the confirmation of notice and the summary.
Thank you, Mayor Corda. Notice of this public hearing was given in accordance with the Local Government Act and Community Charter by distributing the notice as follows: publishing in 2 consecutive editions of the Times Chronicle on November 10th and 17th, placing the notice on the bulletin boards in the town office and planning and development services on November 12th, and on the website on November 12th. Notices for the original public hearing were mailed out on November 9th and hand delivered within a 60-meter radius on November 12th. And then the public hearing was canceled for November 23rd. So it was republished for today's date of December the 7th in 2 consecutive editions of the Times Chronicle on November 24th and December 1st, placed on the notice bulletin boards in the town's office and planning and development services on November 24th, as well as posted on the town's website on November 24th. Notices were mailed out and hand delivered within a 60-meter radius on November 26th.
You're going to do the summary of the staff report as well,
Yes.
please?
The purpose of the meeting is to seek public input on the zoning bylaw amendment number 1085/140/2021, which received its first and second readings on October 26th of 2021. The zoning amendment bylaw 1085/140/2021 proposes that the amending bylaw, if adopted, would allow for multi-family developments consisting of a mix of single-family homes, townhomes, and condominium units to be located on the property at 8,000 Cottonwood Drive.
Thank you, Mrs. Hilson. And I'm going to ask for a staff report, please, from Ms. McKay.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. So the owner of the subject property is Cottonwood Lake Shore Developments Limited, and the applicant is Focus Architecture. And of course, the property is located at 8,000 Cottonwood Drive. And the purpose of this proposal is to rezone the property from the CD7 or Comprehensive Zone 7 to the CD11 Comprehensive Zone 11. So a little bit more background policy content for you. The current designation of the property is comprehensive development. The designation was approved concurrent with the zoning in 2007, which created a CD7 zone. The rezoning to a new comprehensive development zone is therefore in conformance with the town's OCP. So with respect to multifamily development permit area, the subject property is within the multifamily development permit area and compliance with the guidelines set out in the OCP is a requirement. Schedule B of the town's OCP includes the commercial and multifamily facade guidelines, and the guidelines set forth a threshold of design expectations. Now, these guidelines include the use recommendation for the use of earth tones and soft muted colors in addition to simple or plain geometry. Now, I've included the draft development permit in your report, Mayor McCurdup and council members, and it's attached to this report. It can be viewed online. So the zoning bylaw with respect to the property, the subject property is currently zoned CD7. Now that zone was created in 2007, as previously noted, to allow for a comprehensively planned multifamily project. That CD zone allowed for resort multifamily dwellings, commercial use, multiple family dwellings, licensed establishment, restaurant and retail store. The maximum height of that particular development was to be 24 meters. With respect to the foreshores required in the riparian area protection regulations, the developer has retained the services of qualified environmental professional to perform reconnaissance work on the site and prepare the necessary reports to support both the residential development and the appropriate setback from the lake development. The report concluded that the proposed setback meets the provincial recommendations for best practices. And of course, a QAP would be on site during construction to ensure compliance with best practices. Now, staff are in support of the new proposal, subject to, of course, comments received at the public hearing. The proposed development is scaled appropriately for the site, and the proposed height of the building at a maximum 24 meters for the condominium building only, as we all know, they're stepped back from the lake. It's the same as that which was permitted as part of the CD7 zone or the previous zoning, but with a much smaller density. With respect to implications for the community will benefit from this new housing, and the proposed widening of the public lane will provide a future emergency exit and improved pedestrian access. Appendix A to my report includes report 1 to council, wherein we describe and discuss that in more detail. Now, following a successful third reading of the amending bylaw, the applicant would then finalize the requirements for council's consideration for the multifamily development permit prior to adopting the bylaw. Now, the proposed zoning amendment has no implications for the town's budget at this point, but consideration may be given in the future to improvements to Sue's Park, inclusive of defining and paving a parking area for visitors to the park. Council received the application for rezoning on October 26th, at which time a motion was passed to accept the application, grant first and second readings. Notices were then placed in 2 consecutive issues of the Times Chronicle, and notices were hand delivered on November 25th and mailed to residents and property owners within 60 meters of the property on November 25th. Now, should council grant third reading to the amending bylaw, staff would then work with the developer to finalize the development permit and servicing plans prior to council's consideration of final adoption. So sustainability, the property is located within a municipally serviced area, confirming regular available services is also being received. Options would be, of course, that council grants third reading following public hearing, or 2, council determines that consideration of zoning bylaw should take place at a lot later date, or council defeat the bylaw at third reading. And again, depending on comments received through this public hearing, staff are recommending option number 1. Now, I do know there was a couple of comments received from the public, and I'd like to just briefly speak to those, if that's okay. So for the most part, the comments received from the public along Cottonwood Drive were in respect of the parking and some concerns relative to the amount of parking being provided and some concerns with parking on Cottonwood Drive. So for the number of residents required on site, which is 58 units, under the zoning bylaw, the required number of spaces is 102 spaces. In this particular case, the total resident parking is 120 spaces. So that is 18 spaces greater than is required under the zoning. In addition to that, there's also another additional 7 spaces being provided for visitor parking. So we do feel that there is enough parking on the site for the proposed use. We also received comments from Mr. Borges, who's an owner of agricultural property in the area, which has an easement. He's an easement holder for irrigation at the end of Cottonwood Drive. And he's also come in and spoke with me and my staff at the department. His concerns were as follows. He wanted to know if the existing park on the north side of the irrigation, north side there, that the public park, we call it the Sue's Park, would prevent the use of the area for the irrigation holders. Of course, that has no impact. I also want to know if the development had any effect on the easement holders' ability to remove and place intakes into Sue's Lake. Now, of course, that is at the end of our public road, so it has no effect. And the development has no effect on their removing, repairing, upgrading, or sustaining the irrigation holder systems. And of course, we had discussed previously about a designated area for boaters in front of the subject property. And we've been looking for council to support removing of the covenant that prevents the installation of a marina for the owners of the property at 8,000 Cottonwood. And we'll be asking for council to consider that or further reading of the subject bylaw. Now, he is asking about whether or not there be protected water area designated in front of that public park for public use for swimming, kayaking, paddleboarding. We don't have the concrete long-term plans, but what is typically done in front of our public parks when the funds are available, we do look to have swim grids in place there. So I have spoken with other directors, and they are looking to improve the area with at least swim grids in the near future. Again, that travel, he's asking about the high packed gravel walkway along the east side of the lot for pedestrian use. Now, you recall we did discuss the pedestrian access. And then again, another concern of his was about the low voltage supply at Fortis, from Fortis at the end of the Cottonwood Drive. Now, I did have a call into Fortis and I wasn't able to make connection with them. But I understand from Mr. Underwood that improvements to the Fortis grid at that area has been done recently for Incomeep, and so they anticipate there's not going to be any problem with that, but we'll ensure that prior to final approval for the property. Not sure if there are any more questions
Thank you.
relevant to the.
I was just going to read off the correspondence that we have received.
Oh, my apologies.
And Ms. McKay has already addressed some of them, but the first was an email from Rob McGregor dated November the 20th, 2021, concerned about excess parking on Cottonwood Drive and long-term effects with an increased population in the area. And you have mentioned that. Email from Roger Borges dated November the 21st, 2021, raised concerns about the development of the project with respect to irrigation, access to the lake for the public, power supply, and inquired about the pedestrian pathway and access to Cottonwood Drive from the Incomeep campground, which you have already mentioned. An email from Karen Bryan dated November 21st, 2021, concerned about on-site parking. An email from Brenda DeRoche dated November the 22nd, 2021, supportive of the development but would like to see affordable housing and prohibit short-term rentals. And the latest letter was from Interior Health dated December the 7th, requested the inclusion of mixed income housing, allocating space for gardens and universal design principles. So those were the 5 letters that were included in the package. So what I'm going to do now is ask, we'll have presentations, and I am thinking that the applicant, Colin Hogan from Focus Architects, may be on Zoom, and would he like to speak?
No.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. So we'd actually spoken to the planning department earlier. So what we would prefer to do is to listen to any public comments regarding the development and then address any questions or concerns at that time. I think the summary made already is a pretty accurate summary about what we're proposing to do here. We're looking forward to working with the community on the development, and we'd just like to hear what the public commentary is. So if that's okay with Mayor and Council, that would be our preference.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hogan. That will be fine. So I'm just wondering, Mrs. Hilson, if there are any members of the public who wish to speak.
Can't see them on the list. I guess you could ask.
Is there anyone in the public
Yes, there is somebody.
there are some?
There's somebody, it says Zoom user.
Okay,
So we will ask.
so go ahead and ask that.
Yes.
Could that person please state their
Yes.
name and address?
Yes, so
And-
Zoom user, you need to unmute yourself.
She's got to turn her mic on.
Well, while we're waiting for that one, is there anyone else who would like to speak about this issue? And does council have any questions of the developer? Go ahead, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to ask Ms. McKay, since we're doing a study with the water on the east side of the bridge, do you feel quite confident there's enough water supply?
Thank you, Councillor King, through the chair. Yes, we've already determined there is enough water supply for this proposed development.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
They dropped out of the,
Okay, didn't want to state anything. So
oh,
I don't think we have any.
oh, no,
Oh, sorry, is there one?
I think they're back. Zoom user, do you want to try to speak again? You have to unmute yourself. So next is Darlene Lilies.
Oh, and so she would like to speak.
Yes.
Go ahead. Is it Darlene?
Yeah.
Go
Hello.
ahead, Darlene.
Yes, my name is Darlene Lilies, and I live at the Palms at 6805 Cottonwood Drive.
Yes.
And we have a concern about the traffic that would be going down Cottonwood, and wondering if there's an access planned at 8000 Cottonwood for if we had to evacuate in the event of a forest fire, and all that traffic would be coming through Cottonwood Drive and create quite a bottleneck. So I was just wondering if there was going to be speed bumps installed or anything like that to slow the traffic down.
Thank you very much, Darlene. I will ask Ms. McKay to respond to that. Have you looked at that?
Thank you, Mayor McCorduck. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on that. As noted at the previous council meeting, the developer is dedicating a portion of the southeast corner of the property that will allow us to add on to the existing right of way that the town holds from Cottonwood Drive up to 45th. And our intent is to develop that as an emergency access or egress to the area. And I understand that our fire chief has already been in discussions with representatives at Lucy's Indian Band. They're also anxious to work on that access as well. So
Thank you very much.
with respect to speed bump sets, not typically something we implement on town street. So
We have done it the odd time, but it's not common for sure. So does that answer your question, Darlene?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yes, next is Scott.
Go ahead, Scott, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm Scott Armstrong. I'm the strata president for Solavita at 7200 Cottonwood Drive. I'd like to ask a few questions regarding the parking spaces that are being allotted on the property. And are they included in the garages? Are you considering the garages parking spaces?
I'm not sure. Would you like to answer that?
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. In some cases, yes.
Okay, one of the biggest things that we feel that the biggest mistake in Solavita was lack of parking. Solavita has 0 guest parking. It has, in some cases, in some of the townhouses, it has single parking in a garage and then a space in the driveway. But unfortunately, these type of properties tend to have the garages used as storage for jet skis and boats and wakeboards and all those kind of things that people are using up on the lake, and they tend not to use or be able to use the parking. And in the summertime, Cottonwood Drive is just, it's chaos. There's just little or no parking left on the road at all. And I just believe we've made some mistakes in the past, and it's time to, look at it really hard now and make sure that there is a lot of parking, especially the fact that that's the cul-de-sac. And, in front of our place, we have just the street. So there is some street parking, but in the cul-de-sac, they're not going to have that chance. And it's just going to, in our opinion, it's just going to be chaos down there in the summertime. The next item we're concerned about is, again, short-term rentals. We're fairly successful at dealing with it. A couple of the other property next door to us isn't, which creates the parking issues as well. We feel like the short-term rentals, you guys zone it for short-term rentals, but then the follow-up and follow-through on the city's part of it is just not there. You don't help us stop it. And so it just continues on without penalty. And unless we do it as a strata council, which is very onerous, we can't control it. And I think it's something that has to be controlled in the town. And the third item we have concern is the marina. You are talking about building this development without including the marina and talking about having the marina after the fact. We already have problems with boats being anchored out in the lake. We have problems at other properties near us that have illegal boat slips and lifts and everything plunked in the water. It's all over the lake at Incaneep. They have them all across there. It's a serious problem that needs to be dealt with, and we can't afford to really put more things on the lake without controlling it. As a concept, we're in favor of that development, but it's gotta be right.
Thank you very much. Is there any staff who would like to comment on any of those? Ms. McKay, do you?
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. No, I can certainly appreciate that, the concerns with parking. As I stated previously, they are providing parking above what is required, almost 20% above what is actually required. And some of the spaces, yes, they are in the garages, some are not. They have actually provided additional parking for visitor parking, designated visitor parking. So I believe that they have addressed that. I understand it is busy on that street, and I do know that there are problems with short-term rentals, and council has committed funds for us to explore opportunities of how we might be able to address that in the future in the coming year. So we are going to take a serious look at a way we might be able to address the concerns with short-term rentals. And then, of course, the developer is in fact proposing a marina at this site. It's just that as part of the previous application, there was a covenant registered on title that prohibited a marina from being located here. And the current applicant is looking to council to approve the removal of that covenant so that they can address concerns with respect to the placement of buoys in the lake. So, thank you, though. I'm hopeful that the marina would be approved in the future.
So can I comment back?
Yes, go ahead.
So my suggestion would be that they don't proceed until you guys remove the covenant, and you can allow a marina or have the province allow the marina, so that we're not in a situation like we are in other spots on the lake. The same with the parking. I mean, you say you've allowed 20% more, but even 20% more is not enough on our property as it stands right now. People don't use the garages. They just literally don't. They have nothing but, like I said, boats and jet skis, and I'm guilty. I'm one of them. And so if we're counting the garages, it just doesn't make sense. If you have those 128 and those other spots that are not the garages, I'm all for it. But you got to have the extra parking, especially in the cul-de-sac. And it's just going to be necessary. And a lot of the time we sit there and talk about, well, we can do this and we've done this in the past. Well, we should learn from our past mistakes. We shouldn't go ahead with things and then try to fix them after. And that's what it sounds like we're going to do here with the marina and the parking. We should learn from what's happened in the past and fix it before we have to deal with it later. And that seems to be a lot of the things that cities seem to do. We'll deal with it later. It's not the right approach. Deal with it up front, and then everybody knows what to expect.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Scott.
Thank you for your time.
We have not allowed a marina in there at this point, and it is something that will have to come to council at a future time. And we will take a very good look at that before a marina is, because right now they can't put a marina in there. So there would have to be a pretty good reason to put it in, and we will certainly look at it, but it's not part of the development.
But if you don't allow the marina, you're going to have the same situation that you have at other developments on Cottonwood Drive, where people are plunking in lifts and buoys and everything else in there, which is exactly what my understanding is we don't want anymore. We're trying to control that, and we're trying to deal with it. So if we go ahead and build this development, we all know, everybody in this room realizes that somebody's going to plunk a boat out there and somebody's going to plunk some jet skis out there, and you're not going to be able to control it. So why would you put yourself in that position?
So thank you very much for your comments, but definitely because it's an international waterway, there's more to it than just what the town can do, and it has to be Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and so I know that our planners will look at that very carefully. So we do appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else, Ms. President, who wants to?
Not online.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else here that wants to speak? No, good, okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions, any concerns about this? And then we will ask would the developer like to make some comments before we move on? No?
Certainly.
Go ahead, Mr. Hogan.
Certainly. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I think there was a few good points raised there, and things that we certainly have given consideration to. I think it's important to realize that the current zoning on the property that was in place, put in place back in 2007, anticipated many more units than this. I believe there was in the neighborhood of 180 units in a very intensive development that was planned at that time. So the development that we're proposing is significantly less dense than that, about a third of that number of units, 58 units in total. And we've tried to create a mix of different unit types to address different owner needs, from single family to townhouse to condominium. So the reduction in density alone should go a long way towards alleviating concerns about traffic. Now, of course, there is no traffic being generated there. So one more car, of course, is more traffic than what's currently at the site, but it's significantly less than what could be developed under that existing zoning had that project gone ahead. I think the comment that the planning department made already with respect to the dedication of land and the emergency access is well taken, and it's something that we worked with staff to provide to make sure that we were giving enough land there to allow that secondary access to take place. The parking issue is always a challenging one, and we're aware of some of the challenges in the developing neighboring developments. And so if we can just talk a little bit about the parking more, the single family units have 4 parking spaces each, 2 in a garage, but 2 in every driveway. And we recognize that some people do put their toys in their garages, which is why we have additional parking for those. We feel like the largest units are the ones that are most likely to have the most boats, jet skis, beach toys, etc. The townhouse units all have 1 in a garage, 1 separate on a parking pad or a driveway, but the garage has the ability to be a full 40 feet deep. So it's about 12 feet wide by either 20 or 40 feet. We've created what we call a flex space at the front of that garage, where if someone doesn't have the need for the toy storage, they could put an additional bedroom down at the bottom. The townhouses are all 3 bedrooms. So there's plenty of space, but if somebody doesn't have the need for that additional space, additional bedroom space, they have a full 40-foot deep garage where you can put a boat and a jet ski and the life jackets and all the toys that go with it, plus get a car in the garage, plus get a car in your designated parking pad. The units, the condo building has 36 units. It has several different types. There are smaller units on levels 2 through 3, more affordable, sort of 700 square foot units that all have a parking stall, of course, assigned to them. The units on the bottom floor, there's 4 of them, are a little bit larger. They have 2 designated parking stalls that are outdoors. They're not in garages. And then the top of the building, levels 5 and 6 are larger, luxurious suites, 15 to 1600 square feet. They also come with 4 parking stalls each. The garages for those are large. They're 20 feet by about 31 feet in depth. So again, there's plenty of storage in those garages. They're very much oversized garages for this purpose. We recognize how people use their recreational property and don't want to create a problem. So there's enough space for all of the beach goodies in there, plus 2 dedicated stalls outside. So we have really given it some thought. Of course, everybody would like more and more and more parking, but we feel like we've gone above what's really been required. We've listened to the commentary, and we feel like we've addressed it. And with regards to the marina, we would absolutely like a marina to be part of the development. There's a procedure to go through, as mentioned by staff. There are multiple levels of approvals that are required. We're actively pursuing those approvals now. We would love for that to come together before any dirt is moved on the site. That would be our ideal situation. If those approvals do not come together at that time, then the development team will have a decision to make about the timing of things. And I, as the architect, I can't speak to exactly whether they will choose to proceed in the hopes of getting the marina, or if they would prefer to get the marina locked up before proceeding. But we hear the concern. And I think we want the same thing as the previous speaker. So that summarizes my points. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Colin there, because we did get a letter from Interior Health. I was curious if any of the units will be designed for sort of people that are disabled, like bigger doors or washrooms that people could actually get through the doors? Or has there been any thought into that?
Yeah, great question. There certainly has been. So obviously the multiple level units, the single families are 2-story units, the townhouses are 3 stories with roof decks. So they're not really conducive to that sort of a user, but the condominium units are all single level living, and they're all really quite spacious. And so that would be something that is easy to incorporate at this point. We've done adaptable housing in lots of different communities throughout BC. And so I think the developer would be quite happy to look at providing a series of units that have a little bit more space for mobility.
Yeah, I would really encourage the developer to look at providing 2 or 3 of them in the big development.
It's a great comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to, seeing no more questions, I'm going to ask the public for the first time if anyone wishes to speak to the application. I will ask a second time if anyone wishes to speak to the application. And I will ask the third and final time if anyone wishes to speak to the application. Hearing none, I will ask what councillors that the public hearing be adjourned. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor. Thank you very much. Councillor King, did your hand go up? Thank you. Okay, so the meeting agenda that be adjourned at 6:36. Thank you very much. Now we have a section D, which is bylaws, and there is a consideration of third reading at this time. Council, what would you? Thank you very much for coming.
Okay.
Council, what would you like to do? We can consider having third reading right now, or we can leave it for
December 14th, the next regular meeting, your worship.
we could do it on December 14th,
Council could move that consideration of third reading be deferred to December 14th.
or we could do
Regular
it
meeting.
tonight, whatever you would prefer. Anybody, Councillor Bennett?
I like to move we make it for the next council meeting in December, so I can, all the councils here.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Rhodes? Any more? Anybody else? Okay, there's just 4 of us here then. I'll call the question. All in favor of moving it to December the 14th? Thank you. That's passed. So I will now ask council for, we'd like to have a motion to terminate the meeting. Councillor King, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor. Thanks very much, everybody.